Yes. Good evening. Welcome to the After Hours Show. This is Joe Umami. Joe no longer in Norway. I'm joined by Anne Lee, retired college professor and community member of the Daily Coast. She's a member of the National Council of Independent Scholars and is a member of the contributor to the book, The Political Economy of Art, Making the Nation of Culture. Sorry, my notes are on a crumpled piece of paper in my pocket. I'm out in the middle of a gigantic city. I'm no longer stuck out in the boondocks. I'm in the midst of 15 million people and a little bit of history. And I'm without a kitchen this evening, so no cooking. But I thought we'd do a little architecture ASMR. And I'm in Taksim Square in the center of Istanbul. It's 2 in the morning.
Very cool.
Yes, and we're at the Republic Monument. We have a little book here that I could read. Maybe I could read this and see what's written here first, and maybe the Wikipedia has a little bit less propagandized version.
Well, Shaw,
Taksim Square is across from Gezi Park, which is very famous for the anti-government protests. Initially protesting development of the park. Traditionally the secular center of the town. So this is the Republic Monument. Taksim Republic Monument is a monumental symbol decorating Taksim Square. The structure was built to Italian sculptor. Translation's a little bit off. How's my mic? Am I still holding up?
Pietro Canonica.
Pietro Canonica. Additionally, 2 young Turks, Hadi Barabey and Sabiha Bengutas have also made an important contribution to the creation of the monument. The memorial was opened on August 8, 1928. Its base and landscaping works were conducted by the architect Guillaume Mongeri. Stone and bronze were used in the construction of the monument, which took 2.5 years. Financial resources were collected with donations from the public. The monument, weighing 84 tons, was brought by ship from Rome to Istanbul. Bronze figures at both sides of the monument, which rise from the middle of a circular square and designed as a square fountain, are contained in an arched stone pedestal inspired by traditional architecture, and the pedestal of an 11-meter-high monumental pink Trinto and green Sousa marbles were used. One face of the monument represents the War of Independence, while the other represents Republic-era Turkey. On the north side of the monument, Mustafa Kemal is seen in front of his soldiers. On the other side, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk next to İsmet İnönü. I'm struggling with my Turkish pronunciations, really. And Fevzi Kamçak are depicted with soldiers and people illustrating the establishment of the young Turkish Republic. In this side of the monument, again, statues of Soviet General Mikhail Frunze and Clement Voroshilov in the back of Ataturk represent the gratitude to Soviet help during the War of Independence. A statue of a soldier is present on each side, and the medals on them have the portraits of two women under this narrow faces of the monument. A mere stone is located, and in front of this there are marble troughs. These would be the marble troughs there. The artist created a project to use these troughs to resemble flowing water and square fountains. Water element is used later. It is the first public monument in our history. So the first modern Turkish public monument. And it's a circular plaza, and it's ringed by an old tram, the terminus to a major commercial street that goes down. So, Anne, did you notice any other interesting things on the Wikipedia page I sent you?
No, other than it's interesting to note the Russian SFSR relationship. I assume they had a major role in the Turkish War of Independence. The Russian Soviet Federative the Russian Soviet Federative Socialist Republic.
I told you something. Okay, so much happened, and you.
Are you being accosted? Oh?
No, there's lots of hassling going on. So is Nancy in the house by any chance? I hope she is here. I had a few things for her to read, which are related to.
Hello, Nancy.
Is it? I might have to turn off my my mic, but I was going to ask Nancy if she could read a little bit about the controversy that surrounds this park, a little bit of the history. It's a
yes. Can you tell me?
On that.
Can you hear me? Where is the text? Is it
It's in Discord.
Okay.
There were two or three links there in the DM message for Discord.
Oh, okay.
So this used to be the most major monument in the park, and it's hard to distinguish now, but in the distance there's the Taksim Mosque, which is a modern mosque that was begun in 2017 and completed in 2021. We'll discuss a little bit about that later, but
okay, let me just, I have a pot of something I want to cover. Cooking.
Don't overcook your noodles in the middle of the show, Nancy.
It's
don't burn your
vegetables.
noodles.
I'm gonna make soup. Anyway, so I see the first one. It says construction and destruction, Taksim Square, an architectural battlefield. So that one first?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm visiting the site. Okay. Okay, it's bouncing around a little bit.
Okay, it says, construction and destruction, Taksim Square, an architectural battlefield, a symbolic space of state authority and the nerve of Istanbul. Taksim Square is the place where governments have tried to leave a mark or erase that of their predecessors, generating an unresolved and indefinite public space. This is by Francesca Pasta, published November 9th, 2019. After a decade of idleness and despite widespread opposition, the Ataturk Cultural Center, AKM by its Turkish initials, in Istanbul's Taksim Square was torn down last year. With its bold curtain wall facade, the AKM was an icon of Turkish high modernism, representing the secular, modern values of the westward-looking republic in the heart of the city. Meanwhile, an imposing mosque is rapidly taking shape at the other end of the shapeless square. The concretization of a hotly debated project dating back to the 50s, marking the Islamization of a place that has for a century constituted the quintessential space of modernity in the city. This ongoing radical transformation needs to be assessed in historical perspective. Located in a non-Turkish majority area in the city's margins, upon the foundation of the Republic, Taksim was chosen as the new civic center, far away from the historical peninsula filled with Ottoman monuments and Byzantine remnants. This way, the newborn state appropriated and Turkified a mainly non-Muslim space, while also distancing itself from a burdensome urban legacy. Since then, Taksim has always been a highly charged space where subsequent governments and administrations scrambled to leave their mark or to erase the traces of predecessors. I have a little advertisement cover, a little bit of never mind. Then there's a photo of Ataturk, founder of the Republic, on the monument of the Republic, the fulcrum of Taksim Square, now obscured by the new mosque. Quote, who takes Taksim takes everything, unquote. Thus, Professor Berg Yildirim, pardon my pronunciation, who has researched and written extensively on the topic, sums things up. The square's symbolic significance, coupled with a planning culture of highly politicized piecemeal urbanism, she explains, generated a continuous process of addition and subtraction, which turned Taksim into an architectural battleground, reflecting the political, ideological, and cultural fault lines transecting Turkish society. This resulted in the square's indefinite layout and unresolved character. With its multi-layered nature, the site of, is it Gezi Park?
Up here, Gezi Park. I don't know if I can film too much of it here because there's a military occupation since the protest is going on and they don't allow filming. We'll see what we can do. Thanks. Yes.
With its multi-layered nature, the site of Gezi Park well exemplifies this confrontational approach to urban transformation. The Promenade Park was built in the 40s as a stage for modern life, following French planner Henri Prost's project, razing down the Ottoman artillery barracks. Istanbul's mayor at the time, proceeded to demolish the building from behind without informing the government. As the base for an anti-Western riot staged in 1909 by conservative officials opposing the Young Turks' reforms and supporting Sultan Abdul Hamid II, the barracks carry a specific significance in the Islamist political imaginary. One, their controversial reconstruction as a privatized shopping mall envisioned by the AKP administration amounts to an architectural manifesto of Erdogan's Turkish model, a blend of neoliberal economics, social conservatism, and authoritarian democracy.
I'll just pause you for a moment there, Nancy. Not about the text, but about the dogs. Dogs and cats are roam around freely in Istanbul. The dogs seem to congregate in the park, and people take care of them, feed them. Cats have little houses in the street, with water, and well fed. Quite special.
So how are the mice doing? Who takes care of the mice?
I have not seen a single rat or mouse.
Wow.
That's the cat's job. Wait, so where you were just standing, that's those steps you went up, is that the foundation of, what is that?
That's the Gezi Park. And I don't want to get too close because there's cops there, and
we don't want this
and such.
Be careful, Joe. We don't want this episode of the Autonomous Collective to turn into Midnight Express.
That's true.
So anyway, we left off with the architectural manifesto of Erdogan's Turkish model, a blend of neoliberal economics, social conservatism, and something called authoritarian democracy. That's an interesting concept. Not incidentally, it is
sounds good to me. I think it's a great idea.
It is in Gezi that this model shattered, as in the 2013 riots ignited by the project and the government's reaction marked the shift from soft to hard totalitarianism in the country. Two, during the occupation of the park, the AKM became a palimpsest for oppositional banners and protest messages. And the Turkish president announced its demolition by acrimoniously addressing its opponents. Quote, rant and rave, we destroyed it, unquote. Yet Gezi Park, just as the barracks before, are built on an old Armenian cemetery. The park's marble steps are said to be gravestones.
Oh, wow. Really?
Well, they polished all the names off. I didn't notice any there.
Oh my God.
The barracks plan has momentarily been shelved, but the square pedestrianization has been hastily carried out with the construction of a traffic underpass, a solution interpreted by Yildirim as a spatial tactic to easily block pedestrian access to Taksim if need be. As a central space imbued with the symbolism of state authority, indeed, Taksim has always been also the stage for counter-representations and confrontational demands, such as the banned May 1st demonstrations, Armenian genocide commemorations, and violently repressed pride parades. Beyond state attempts to impose top-down narratives, the square maintained its character as a heterogeneous public space. Quote, no square is more public than Taksim in the country, unquote, as remarked by Imre Azem, director of documentary Ecumenopolis, focusing on Istanbul's urban transformation. Now the government is deploying a variegated arsenal of interventions to assert its control over it, from heavy patrolling to propagandist photographic exhibitions, from Ramadan dinner services to government-sponsored festivals, such as the so-called, quote, Democracy Festival, unquote, staged in the square after the failed 15th of July coup, when the AKM was covered in a gigantic red banner reading, quote, sovereignty belongs to the people, unquote. This dramatic and deliberately choreographed restructuring carried out by the AKP government is, however, all but an exception to Taksim's century-long eventful history, a form of ideological urbanism, unilaterally intervening on a space laden with multiple conflicting meanings. Ekrem Imamoglu, I don't know how you say it. Istanbul's newly elected mayor from the opposition announced a new competition to reshape Taksim Square only 10 days after his election, with the aim to, quote, turn Taksim into a place everyone will be able to enjoy. Number 3, it seems indeed that in the years to come, Taksim will maintain its character as a contested public space constantly in the making. That's it. That's the end of that one.
So, for many decades, this monument was the highest point of the park, or the biggest symbol. And it's been supplanted since 2021 with the hold on. And I gotta help the baby. I don't have any cash or anything. It's quite imposing,
jacket,
but it's a
Joe.
She's got a blanket.
Oh.
So if Nancy, if you could, I have another page for the mosque, some information on the mosque.
Taksim Mosque from Wikipedia, that one.
Yeah, so it's open all evening, but I went over and the doors are shut. So looks like we're not going to be able, and it's normally lit up very beautifully. And you could imagine this is hundreds of centuries old, or tens of centuries old. But we'll read about that here shortly. So I'll just roam around the outside, and you can appreciate the architecture that you can see in the light.
Okay, so you want me to read this?
It's lit up in the evening and early mornings. It's quite beautiful. Yeah, if you could. I think it's quite interesting.
Okay.
So this is basically the biggest religious symbol that has been erected here since 100 years, more or less.
Taksim Mosque, Wikipedia article, is a mosque complex in Taksim Square, Istanbul. It was designed by 2 Turkish architects in the Art Deco style and can hold up to 3,000 worshippers at the same time.
Let me pause you there. This area was filled to the brim with people, worshippers tonight, or last evening, Friday. It's quite packed. I've been there earlier in the week, and it was a couple of worshipers. Quite amazing space. Yep.
Wait, you're in
Cut-
Istanbul?
cons-
Sorry.
Yes, this is Taksim. We're in Taksim Square.
Yeah, I was there, you know.
And this is. Were you there when the mosque was being built?
It was
Taksim.
shortly after we left. I think just a month or so later, maybe. I'm not sure about that. They had
No,
some
I
kind
was
of big,
just about
Huh?
to read that part. Construction began on February 17th, 2017, and lasted for 4 years. The mosque was inaugurated with a Friday prayer attended by the president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, on 28th of May, 2021. The land on which the mosque was built is currently owned by the Directorate General of Foundations. History. The plan for a mosque in Taksim Square has been in the making since 1952. The Taksim Mosque Building and Sustenance Association was founded with the aim to construct a mosque in Taksim Square, but was closed after the 1980 military coup in Turkey. The Council of State stopped the Taksim Mosque project in 1983 on the grounds that it was, quote, not in the public interest. The Taksim Mosque remained on the agenda of the governments of Turgut Özal in the 1980s. And, you know, these names, I don't know them. Nekmetin,
You could ask John for help.
is it Nekmetin Erbakan? Does that sound familiar?
well, I don't speak Turkish. So.
Anyway,
Oh,
probably,
I meant Professor John.
there might
I
not
don't
be
think he
any
speaks either.
Turkish speakers listening to this,
You-
so it's
you-
okay.
You nailed it, Nancy.
He
Oh,
speaks,
good.
speaks tap.
Very
So-
tall
so-
boys.
It was on the agenda of this Erbakan in 1996. The project has always been closely scrutinized by the media and has encountered legal obstacles because Taksim Square had been closely associated with republicanism and secularism. A court objected to the construction of the mosque on the grounds that it would be against the public interest. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, whose name I don't really know if I said it right, but I think I did,
Pretty good.
had supported the
Pretty
idea
close.
of the mosque since becoming Istanbul's mayor in 1994. The prospect of the new mosque was one element in the Gezi Park protests in 2013. In January 2017, the mosque was approved by the Cultural Monuments Preservation Board, which oversees the construction of protected historic sites, thereby removing the last obstacle to its construction. Construction process. Following approval for the construction of the mosque by the Istanbul No. 2 Regional Council for the Protection of Cultural Heritage on January 19, 2017, it was announced that some small offices and facilities would be demolished. Site preparation started on February 9th, 2017. Ahmet Misbah Demirkan, the mayor of Beyoğlu district, named Sefik Berki, the architect of the mosque, on February 10th, 2017. Sur Yapı was contracted to carry out its construction. The mosque is located just behind Taksim Maksimi, the stone water storage unit built by Mahmud I in 1731. The mosque faces the Ataturk Cultural Center across Taksim Square, the pedestrian shopping street Istiklal Caddesi runs off Taksim Square behind the mosque. The Hagia Ada Greek Orthodox Church is on the other side of Istiklal Street from the mosque. Architectural features. Excluding the two minarets, the mosque's height is approximately 30 meters or 98 feet, making it the same height as the two historical churches in the vicinity. The mosque has been designed in a modern take on the traditional domed style associated with Sinan, S-I-N-A-N, and has been cleverly tailored to fit its confined setting. The complex includes a conference and exhibition hall and an underground parking garage. Gotta have parking. The mosque's design contains details that are not found in classical Ottoman Turkish architecture, such as the shape and proportion of the oversized balconies on the minarets. The smaller cupolas surrounding the main dome are reminiscent of Mughal architecture in terms of design. The end.
Okay, so Gezi Park protest, that was what happened within, say, a week or two after I was there. And even when I was there, when we first were taken from the airport, our driver took us to where we were staying, which is right near there. It was, I don't know, 2 blocks or something from that. We saw cops sitting down somewhere. They had like gear on them and stuff. It's like, what's going on here? But whatever it was, had already happened. And then later on that week, we were there. It's just 5 days we were there. We saw it somewhere down below, right up the Bosphorus River. It was in that general area. There was like dozens and dozens and dozens of cops just lined up all along the street there. And I don't know what that was about either. And then that protest happened, like I said, about a week or two after we returned to Cyprus.
So the Gezi Park protests happened 28th of May.
13.
Began 28th of May, 2013.
Yeah, that was right after we were there. So
we'll get to that in a little bit. I just wanted to point out this little pavilion where you come and wash your hands and feet before you go to pray. You have to clean as a being before you go and worship. I believe, Larry, you have that link for Gezi Park. Oh, wait, maybe before we do that, let me get my pictures sorted. And I can show you a few of the pictures from the mosque. Get over there, like inside.
It is, while you're getting it, it is actually really a interesting way of asserting the power of the government to take over the space and the building of a mosque that, while it is equal height with the other churches, it's clear that there is other agendas at work. And Erdogan seems to be this is his like deal, whatever.
Yeah. I was going to make that point. Yeah, it's a way of sort of using architecture as a way of imposing power and basically saying, yeah, you may think this is a secular country, but no, it ain't.
So this is the main dome.
Nice.
That looks familiar. What part of the city is that in?
This is the Taksim Mosque.
That's the inside of the mosque.
Okay, it was another one. No.
You wouldn't
It's
know.
the same mosque. It's just during the day. Interesting. They call it Art Deco. I mean, I guess it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The idea of an Art Deco mosque seems really
it's sort of a really weird idea. I mean, it's kind of got that influence, I guess.
Well, it's a kind of,
So we were, yeah.
I don't know. It has that sort of Disneyfication of
Yeah, it does have a certain, yeah. It could be right.
I do recall around that era when I was there, somewhere around that time, there was signs of Erdogan being an asshole. I think he wanted to force, maybe succeeded at getting the flight attendants on the Turkish Airlines to wear traditional garb, not
yes,
clothing.
very good.
What does that mean? You mean like long, like
Muslim, for the women,
the,
I guess. I don't know about the men, but on the planes to wear traditional Muslim garments or something like that.
like full long, how would you rather?
I don't know, but definitely not modern stuff that,
Well, I mean, I know that
The Emirates,
Emirates, yeah, they have
they
a nice,
a kind of
yeah, they
combination.
wear it's an interesting, I've seen them walk through in sort of almost like parade fashion in their, yeah, it's a combination of contemporary, but they have the hats that also have a little bit of what is it called? The
Cassia.
keffiyeh, not keffiyeh. It's it's the headscarf.
Hijab.
Yeah, a little bit of a hijab, a very stylish hijab fall, in addition to their hats. So it sort of strikes this interesting balance between, because they're still, quite striking.
Larry, would you be able to read a little bit about Gezi Park?
Sure, yeah.
There is,
From the
was
Wikipedia
that the
page.
week thing? Yeah, I think that's all right. Just a little brief.
Yeah, so let's see, a wave of demonstrations and civil unrest in Turkey began on
And that's, oh, sorry, that's just the I lost here. I'll walk towards it. Up the steps. Okay.
I'm sorry?
I just wanted to point out where it is and
Okay.
what I'll head over there now. From
Okay.
the mosque.
So a wave of demonstrations and civil unrest in Turkey began on the 28th of May in 2013, initially to contest the urban development plan for Istanbul's Taksim Gezi Park. The protests were sparked by outrage at the violent eviction at the park protesting the plan. Subsequently, supporting protests and strikes took place across Turkey, protesting against a wide range of concerns, at the core of which were issues of freedom of the press, of expression, and of assembly, as well as the AKP government's erosion of Turkey's secularism. With no centralized leadership beyond the small assembly that organized the original environmental protest, the protests have been compared to the Occupy movement and the May 1968 events. Social media played a key part in the protests, not least because much of the Turkish media downplayed the protests, particularly in the early stages. 3.5 million people out of Turkey's population of 80 million are estimated to have taken an active part in almost 5,000 demonstrations across Turkey connected with the original Gezi Park protest. 22 people were killed and more than 8,000 were injured, many critically. The sit-in at Taksim Gezi Park was restored after police withdrew from Taksim Square on the 1st of June and developed into a protest camp with thousands of protesters in tents, organizing a library, medical center, food distribution, and their own media. After the Gezi Park camp was cleared by riot police on the 15th of June, protesters began to meet in other parks all around Turkey and organized public forums to discuss ways forward for the protests. Turkish Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan dismissed the protesters as, quote, a few looters, unquote, on the 2nd of June, police suppressed the protests with tear gas and water cannons. In addition to the 11 deaths and over 8,000 injuries, more than 3,000 arrests were made. Police brutality and the overall absence of government dialogue with the protesters was criticized by some foreign governments and international organizations. I can stop there.
Yep. So those are the gravestone steps that lead up to the main part of the park, which is now completely occupied by the military. So,
like you do in the totalitarian state.
So if we have any early birds, I will be able to get into the mosque in the daytime. So you're more than welcome to join me. I'll post something on Discord. And yeah, that's all I have for this evening. And I believe you've got some updates on Ukraine, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I'll say a few
Russia.
things while we still have the camera on. Let me just make a few comments. I do think it is this question of the control of the space, and it's interesting that the history of the park, the desire to, well, they tore down those barracks and then they wanted to do a whole urban development thing. It's all about money, ultimately. Still, it's still about money, but it's also about religion with that the mosque that's put in there. So it's this battle between the secular and the religious, but also it suggests something about the kind of the socialist background of Turkey, because if you look at that protest, it's a significant number of parties of the left that were, I mean, it's a really large bunch of parties, and it really goes back to the fact that the Taksim Square, the money for the original monument and the original revolution came from Lenin, from from the Russians.
And in the statue, there's a couple Russians in the statue as well, which was referenced earlier.
So there's a through line to socialism, a secular rather than religious socialism. So there's this interesting tension between these things, and obviously working through this space is part of that. It's interesting that they would want to reconstruct something that looks like the military barracks, but yet make it into a shopping mall. That's just, there's something wrong there. I'd love to see what the design. So it's sort of the facade of the military barracks in a shopping mall. I think that's the implication.
Did anyone else have any comments? Oh, were you finished now? Sorry about that.
Yeah, I'm finished. While you're showing us stuff, I can just talk over and say it's been a busy week, and
well, if you want to share, I could save a little bit on my bandwidth here. So if I cut the video, you can share your screen, maybe. That helps.
I'm fine with that. Yes, okay.
Okay, yeah. Cool.
Here we go.
Oh,
Oops. All right. Hello. Yeah, busy week. A lot of strange things out there. Needless to say, there's some of the rant today was supposed to be about the continuing double down on the dog and pet consumption, purported the hoax, supported by the Trump Vance campaign. They refuse to apologize for creating this, inventing history in that particular kind of sense. There is a certain manufacture of history that's going on in there. And Trump threatened to show up in Springfield, which will really be interesting if he actually shows up. I don't think he will, but it would be sort of interesting. I mean, he'd do it essentially to cause chaos. But we'll see whether that will or won't happen. relative to Vance refuses to, the fact is that the original claim on the pet eating or whatever was debunked on the first day, but they haven't given up. I mean, it's really a total fiction, and but yet it's gained certain legs, and then it's been displaced in the last day or so by the Oprah Harris interview. Oprah Winfrey decided to they put together a interview in Michigan with Kamala, and there were a lot of celebrities there, Meryl Streep, lots of folks, and it was what it did emphasize, and it had a gender division in the sense that obviously Trump and Vance are, trying to gin up some sort of bizarre racial thing, anti-immigrant thing. And it's being countered on the Democratic side by a emphasis on the reproductive rights issues, and more specifically, on Amber Thurman's death, a totally, a death by bureaucracy, that she died simply because no one wanted to save her. Ultimately, that the doctors could not administer care or refused to administer care because they were afraid of state power, and that's the key element in the election. And I think a lot of, to generalize to constraining women's health care has been the key element, and I think that's kind of overloaded this just wacky dog and cat eating thing, which was totally debunked. They actually have gotten hold of the original woman who was a Trumpist. Yes, she was. But I think my recollection is that she was of mixed race, and it was kind of sort of a weird throwaway comment she was making about her Haitian neighbors, to whom she has apologized, needless to say, already. I mean, she apologized on the first day. But yet you had all these other kinds of events intersecting. The Proud Boys showed up, some Nazis showed up at Springfield, and bomb threats. There have been bomb threats, daily bomb threats to hospitals, schools. Couple of universities have closed and went to remote education, just simply because of all this chaos. A significant number, and I think it is a significant number of the phone threats were phoned in from out of Ohio, not from anywhere in Ohio. And some of them may have come, in fact, from, and this is, of course, something that I assume Homeland Security is working on from foreign countries. So there's that kind of thing that's going on during this. The mayor of Springfield, Ohio, is a Republican mayor. And during this entire period, Vance tried to say, well, no, something is happening. And there was some image that was provided to the authorities in Dayton, Ohio, which is about, 20 some odd miles away, but it wasn't Springfield. So the whole business about this has been sort of a weird manufacturing of trying to gin up anti-immigrant stuff. And it was a very strange week. Let's just put it that way. It seems, and this was a speculation by someone on, I think MSNBC, that Trump had a subsequent rally in Long Island, Unionville or Uniondale, whatever the heck it is, where the Nassau County Mausoleum. Some hockey people call it the Nassau County Mausoleum. It was a 16,000 seat structure, but not full. Trump claimed that there were 60,000 people there. Well, clearly not. And the video proves it. And needless to say, the MSNBC folks sort of suggested that this event was a sort of tailor-made for Trump to make him feel better after all of his travails since the debate. But who knows? Needless to say, they weren't immune from bomb threats. There was a bomb threat on the day, and it was interesting to only see how that was sort of constructed. It was a private citizen of some kind who trains drug sniffing dogs, had a or bomb sniffing dogs, was walking his dog or training his dog somewhere near the Coliseum, and somehow that got blown up into a bomb threat, which was really bizarre, weird even, and disclaimed by the Nassau County Police Department, the sheriffs, and it's just interesting to see how this has been that more swatting and bomb threats have come from all of these matters. Needless to say, there is no second debate, and we're a week away from the vice presidential debates. Hopefully this hoax about immigrants, Haitian immigrants specifically, will fade. The problem is, of course, that the kind of construction of the court is built upon a foundation that goes back to Haitian immigrants and the 1980s AIDS crisis, where there was a higher proportion of HIV positive AIDS infected Haitians, and somehow that is stuck in Trump's little brain, and that's what they're trying to play on, that foundation for, and the fact is the Haitians were here on a temporary visa program, essentially, as workers, and they mind their own business. There's just the usual racism that's going on in a city that has lost thousands of people. They've lost jobs and population. There's been no rise in that population since, I think, the 1960s, and so it was sort of a good thing to have, to bring in a migrant community that could actually take the jobs for some industries that needed jobs, and for some reason, whatever economic development was going on was not being well served, and that has to do with a variety of things, of course, in terms of urban life in a Rust Belt city, and yes, it is the Rust Belt in that particular context. So they're playing on that, and of course, Trump is revealing his increased deterioration with gaffes and just bizarreness. He had several purely cognitive gaps, similar to the ones where he during his presidency, where he either, whether his false teeth got loose or something, but he slurred his words multiple times. And of course, the usual just outright lies. CNN came out today with a Daniel Dale, their fact checker extraordinaire, came up with 12 very specific, completely fictional narratives that Trump has been, cranking out over the last couple of weeks. And it's actually quite fascinating to see how they're sort of constructed. And they're just outright lies. I mean, it's just amazing how, the parallel universe is being sort of constructed. It's just very strange. We're getting close to the end anyway, and to move on to the evening itself, I neglected to mention it last week, but there's going to be an hour or more of humor at midnight. That's and that's going to be interesting. At 10 o'clock, there will be the final episode, episode 17 of The Prisoner, around 10 o'clock. And that's following, of course, in half an hour, we're going to have Twilight Zone again. John, if you're here, you want to talk a little bit about the episode? Well, John's perhaps not here.
While we're waiting for John, I just want to apologize and cock up with the schedule. I totally misunderstood. I thought the prisoner was finished last week. And Travis, apologies for not putting the funny hour on. I missed that as well. Template is now fixed. Going forward, we're all sorted.
Indeed. Midnight will be the funny hour.
Well, John isn't talking because this episode of Twilight Zone is all mime.
Indeed. Marcel Marceau.
Professor Ann, are you going to explain what episode 17 is about?
It's very hard to do that. And,
I know.
It is probably the most well, it and the previous episode, which we showed last week, it makes bizarre sense. Let's put it that way. I mean, the fact is the set itself is constructed, or it appears as if the village has always been this weird construction, and then it kind of separates and turns into a kind of moving theater on on a lorry. So it really gets out there. It is strangely structured and open to a lot of interpretation. You could say, with due respect, that much of it is about the kind of drug torture or whatever that was executed in sort of interrogation of spies, etc. So it has that dreamlike aspect to it. That's probably about the most charitable way we can look at it, because I suppose it has continuity. It has, but the references are kind of weird. And then of course the history of it is that it was done earlier, or constructed earlier, or thought of earlier, before they extended the length of the series. So it has a lot of things that don't have continuity with the rest of the series. So that's kind of but I think that's the best way to end the series, that it has, sort of a no conclusion. It has ambiguous, vague, and gives us a sense of strange wonder, I suppose, at something that lasted only one season.
So it was always intended to be the conclusion, even though they extended the series. Okay.
Yes. They essentially plugged in a bunch of more episodes, and well, actually, it was interesting. They put some kind of experimental things in there, but yes, it's another one of those things where the suits never quite figured out what they wanted to do, and of course, the project itself was kind of strange. So there are issues, always issues. So we're very close to the end of our weekly after hours, brought to you over many different miles. And what's it, 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning?
3 o'clock, yes. Almost on 3 different continents. We're straddling 2 here, or the subcontinent of Asia, or Europe.
Yes,
Asia.
Absolutely. The subcontinent, or whatever.
Side.
Or West Asia, that some people refer to it as West Asia. Anyway, but in fact, that's kind of represented on the Taksim Square itself. A modern quote unquote Art Deco mosque. I just really don't believe that's a good style, and the monument for the Republic. So it is this clash of the religious and the secular, which has been always on people's minds in Turkey. And it is essentially, the modern and the pre-modern in that particular sense. So we're getting close to the end of our episode here. I'd like to say that we'll do better next week. We'll probably have even more interesting stuff from the other side of the world.
I should have a kitchen next week, so I'll be doing some Turkish dishes.
Excellent. All righty. So
provided my internet gets better. It's been rough going here. Get it set up.
Tough sledding with social media.
Is
guess we're
Larry
gonna-
still in the house? You want to close us out with the?
Yeah, you want to rev up the song. Rev
oh,
up the
Larry
song.
had to take off.
Sure, yeah, I got it.
We'll,
Oh, sure.
we'll see you next
Later.
week with
We
this.
all.
Bye.
Mm-mm.